The Irish Civil War, which lasted from 1922 until 1923, was a brutal and divisive conflict that erupted after Ireland secured its independence from Britain. It was fought not over the principle of independence but over the terms under which it was achieved. The Anglo-Irish Treaty, signed in 1921, had split the nationalist movement into pro-treaty and anti-treaty factions, igniting a civil conflict that would leave a deep scar on Irish society and politics. The treaty that divided a nation. The Anglo-Irish Treaty, signed in December 1921, established the Irish Free State as a self-governing dominion within the British Commonwealth. This fell short of the complete independence many had fought for during the Irish War of Independence. Furthermore, the treaty allowed Northern Ireland to opt out of the Free State, which it promptly did, and required Free State leaders to swear an oath of allegiance to the British Crown. These terms were seen as a betrayal by many Irish Republicans who had envisioned a fully independent, united Ireland. For others, including Michael Collins, the treaty was a pragmatic solution that provided a pathway to future sovereignty. As Collins famously said, it gave Ireland the freedom to achieve freedom. The Dáil Éireann, Ireland's parliament, narrowly approved the treaty in January 1922, with 64 votes in favor and 57 against. However, this decision did not end the debate. It deepened it, creating a bitter rift within the nationalist movement. The split between pro-treaty and anti-treaty forces. The split between pro-treaty and anti-treaty factions was not just political, it was deeply personal. Many of the leaders on both sides had fought together in the Irish War of Independence. Michael Collins and Arthur Griffith led the pro-treaty camp, while Eamon de Valera and Cathal Brugha emerged as prominent anti-treaty figures. The anti-treaty side rejected the treaty's compromises, particularly the Oath of Allegiance and the partition of Ireland. They believed the treaty undermined the sacrifices made during the War of Independence and left Ireland subordinate to Britain. The pro-treaty side, on the other hand, argued that rejecting the treaty would lead to a resumption of war with Britain, a war they believed Ireland was ill-equipped to fight. They viewed the treaty as a stepping stone toward full independence. Tensions between the two factions escalated rapidly. By early 1922, anti-treaty forces, led by Rory O'Connor, occupied the Four Courts in Dublin and other key locations, effectively challenging the authority of the provisional government. The outbreak of civil war. The conflict erupted into open war in June 1922, when the provisional government, under pressure from Britain, launched an assault on the Four Courts. The attack was prompted by the assassination of British Field Marshal Henry Wilson, an act believed to have been sanctioned by anti-treaty elements. The shelling of the Four Courts marked the beginning of the Irish Civil War. Pro-treaty forces, known as the Free State Army, were better organized and equipped, thanks to British support. Anti-treaty forces, often referred to as the Irregulars, adopted guerrilla tactics similar to those used during the War of Independence. Initially, the pro-treaty side achieved significant military victories. They captured Dublin and other key cities, forcing anti-treaty forces to retreat into the countryside. However, the Irregulars continued to wage a bitter guerrilla campaign, targeting infrastructure, government officials, and Free State soldiers. Key events of the war. 1. Battle of Dublin, June-July 1922. The Free State Army launched a coordinated attack on anti-treaty strongholds in Dublin, including the Four Courts. After several days of intense fighting, pro-treaty forces regained control of the capital. 2. Cork and Limerick. In the summer of 1922, the Free State Army captured Cork and Limerick, key strongholds of the anti-treaty forces in the south. 3. Death of Michael Collins, August 1922. One of the most significant events of the war was the assassination of Michael Collins. Collins was ambushed and killed by anti-treaty forces in County Cork while traveling through his home region. His death was a devastating blow to the pro-treaty side, but also marked the beginning of the end for the anti-treaty campaign. By late 1922, the anti-treaty forces were in disarray. The Free State government imposed harsh measures to suppress the rebellion, including executions of captured irregulars. In total, over 80 anti-treaty fighters were executed by the state, a decision that remains controversial to this day. The war's conclusion. The Irish Civil War effectively ended in May 1923, when Eamon de Valera called for the anti-treaty forces to cease hostilities. By this point, the Irregulars were severely weakened, and their guerrilla campaign had failed to achieve its objectives. Unlike the Anglo-Irish Treaty negotiations, no formal agreement marked the end of the Civil War. The conflict simply fizzled out, leaving deep divisions in Irish society and politics. Consequences of the Civil War. The Irish Civil War had profound and lasting consequences. Human cost. The war resulted in thousands of deaths, including civilians, and left many more wounded. The exact death toll is difficult to determine but is estimated to be between 1,500 and 2,000. Political divisions. The war entrenched divisions within Irish nationalism, leading to the creation of two dominant political parties, Cumann na an Gcéad Shiel, later Fine Gael, representing the pro-treaty side, and Fianna Fáil, founded by Eamon de Valera as a voice for the anti-treaty faction. These parties dominated Irish politics for much of the 20th century. Social impact. The war left a legacy of bitterness and mistrust. Families and communities were divided, and the wounds of the conflict took decades to heal. Economic strain. The war devastated the Irish economy, already weakened by years of conflict. Rebuilding was a slow and arduous process. Join us tomorrow for a deep dive into the Troubles, which lasted over 3 decades in Northern Ireland.